and welcome to the Scouse Scientist podcast with me, Holly Ellis. This first series is called But You Don't Look Like a Scientist, and I've got some amazing guests lined up in a range of STEM careers, but who perhaps don't fit into the stereotypical mould. My guest today is Pandora Dewan, and Pandora is the trending news editor at Live Science and a content creator focusing on science communication. She holds a biological sciences degree from the University of Oxford, where she specialised in biochemistry and molecular biology, and previously held the role of senior science reporter at Newsweek. Pandora is really passionate about overcoming stereotypes about what it means to be a scientist, as well as advocating for unconventional careers in STEM. So, that was an amazing introduction. Sounds like you've done absolutely loads, and it sounds like you're the perfect guest for this podcast. So, thank you so much for joining me today. And I know we connected initially on social media. I followed you on Instagram, but I didn't realise that you went to Oxford. So when were you there? I wonder whether we crossed paths at all.
Possibly. Also, thank you for the introduction, Holly. I started in 2016 and graduated in 2019. So the biology course was only 3 years when I studied there. So I'm still in Oxford now, so we may have crossed paths
No,
since.
see, I think you're a bit younger than me then, because I was there, I think it was 2011 to 2014 and to 2014, but I did biological sciences as well.
I probably saw
So
you on open day then.
yeah, probably.
It's
What
coming
college
round.
did you go to?
I was at Queen's.
Oh, I was at St John's. So what was your time like at Oxford? Did you I had the well, you're still there, so you must have liked it, presumably.
I did. I really loved how you were allowed to be nerdy and into your subject. I think that's something that I've definitely carried since being at university. I think the tutorial system was great in that you're talking to these world experts in their field, and you're just, you're 18, you're 19, and you're having a chat with these people. And I think that stood me in really good stead for my career now, interviewing these same people in a professional capacity, but also just being allowed to be quirky and nerdy and excited about science.
Yeah, oh, exactly. So just to go back a little bit, can you tell me a bit about you and your background and how you ended up going to Oxford in the first place? Were there any barriers that you faced, or, did anyone tell you that it wasn't for you, or science perhaps wasn't for you?
Well, I'm very lucky in that I grew up in Oxford, so I was surrounded by all of these amazing female scientists. Like, my parents
Yeah,
were in children's books, but they had friends who were at the university because everyone just kind of mingles. It's quite a small city.
yeah.
And so it was only when I was an adult that I realized, oh, we are still having to constantly fight against these barriers and prove
Yeah.
ourselves as women in this industry. And that was a bit of a shock to the system, actually, coming from that
Yeah.
world. I think the major thing for me was that I always loved arts and science. So I, for a very long time, thought I was going to be a singer or go into some sort of illustration role. And I think the UK education system very much makes you choose early on. Are you arts or are you science? And the way we have to choose our A levels, if you're going to do a natural sciences degree, you have to do all the sciences and maths, and then there's no space for
100%.
another subject. So I think that was a major barrier for me, and realizing actually you don't need to pick. And historically, there was not even a separation there. It was all one big natural philosophy or one big subject. And you see more and more now, especially on social media, people who are artists with a science background combining their skills, musicians making songs about science. And I think that's becoming more accepted that you're allowed to do both. But I still think that there is a big push by the education system that you need to pick one.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely love that you've brought that up actually, because I was so similar. And that's probably why we're both into, chatting to people and social media and outreach and all of that, because I was the same. So I loved ballet when I was younger. I loved
Mm,
dancing. I loved drama. I was always in the school plays. I played the piano as well.
mhm.
So I really thought that was going to be my sort of route, but I loved science and I was good at science. And I speak a lot about, putting people in boxes. So a lot of the time, science is advertised as, you know, it's sort of like all encompassing. You are a scientist and that's what you do, and you wear a lab coat and that is it. And it's putting kids and young people into these boxes. And actually what you said is so true. It's not one or the other. We can do
Mhm.
both. I mean, I obviously chose to do science, and then I still enjoy, you know, dance lessons or piano or things like that. And I think that is so important for young people, and especially at that age when you're choosing, you know, you don't
Mm.
want to necessarily say goodbye to, or, you know, all the artsy things, do you? It's, yeah, I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Um, so since obviously you did your degree, and then what happened after that? When did you start your social media platform?
Well, I had quite a wiggly career path actually, and I think a lot of that was down to the fact that I loved studying the theory of science, the theory of biology.
Yeah.
I did mostly the molecular cellular side of things,
Mm.
and I found it fascinating, but I really didn't like lab work. Um, and at the time, it was if you want to go into a science career, you need to
Yep.
work in a lab, and that was kind of the only option. So it was difficult to think, well, I love this subject, but how can I continue this in a way that allows me to do all of the things that I love and not have to work in a lab? I mean, it's amazing that so many people do work in labs, but for me, spending my whole life on one subject and months and months to get a single result was just not something I had the patience for.
Mm.
So I did a bit of sort of museum public engagement when I first came out of university. I think the big thing for me was one of my school friends. She and her then partner had started an Instagram page together called Climate Science, and it really blew up. The whole point of it was to educate young people about climate change solutions specifically. It was very positively spun, which is quite a breath of fresh air in the sort of climate change
Yep.
communication in area. And I started doing a bit of volunteering writing for them because the page did so well, they decided to branch into a website. And then lockdown hit, and I didn't know what I was doing. Like most of my friends who'd just graduated, we all went home because, you know, you couldn't really do anything. Might as well live in
Yep.
a slightly more spacious place. Um, so we all went home, and my friend around the same time said, "Do you think you could become the head of content?" And I didn't really have anything else to do. I could actually afford to not be needing to pay rent, not having to go out because you couldn't go out.
Yep.
So for 6 months, I worked as the head of content, a full-time job, volunteering. Eventually, we managed to get funding, and that was sort of what catalyzed realizing, okay, I want to go into science writing, and social media is a really powerful tool to share this information. And it was a while before I started my own page, but that
Mm.
was my introduction to it. And then after about a year of working there, I realized I wanted to focus on the writing side of things. So I went freelance. By sort of a fluke, I ended up doing YouTube script writing. Started with a creator called 42, who did a lot of science content. And then people started coming to me when they saw my credit on the YouTube scripts, and asking if I could write them scripts as well. So it became this sort of, it was a fascinating role where I was writing for other people, learning how to write in other people's voices. But again, I didn't quite have the confidence to take that final step to do it myself. It seemed
Mm.
filming yourself seemed like such a big barrier. And I think it is the first time you do it, it's really scary.
Yeah, it is.
It took me a long time. Like I could write the scripts, that was my job at the time.
Yeah.
Um, so then I started at Newsweek. And for the first year there, it was obviously having very little journalism experience at that point. I had writing experience, but having to learn on the job all of this
Mm.
journalism, writing 4 stories a day, it was quite intense for that first year. And then after that, I started to see the way the journalism industry was changing with AI. And I'm very lucky now at Live Science, we're part of a wider company called Future that really promote human produced content. So we don't use AI to write anything.
Yeah.
That's becoming increasingly rare in journalism and
Mm.
science communication, but especially journalism. And I could see the way the industry was going and thought, how can I make myself stand out and how can I make myself a voice that people want to read from
Mm-hmm.
versus all of the other content creators, all the other journalists, and all of the other AI platforms that are
Yeah.
creating this content. So that's when I really thought, okay, I need to start doing this. I know how to do it. I just have to do it. And I think, you hear so often from these TikTok gurus, embrace the cringe. You really do have to do that.
Oh, I know. It's the same. And it's like I was the same. And I was like, the first video you put out, you just thinking, is everyone gonna think I've gone crazy? What's everyone gonna think? But yeah, it is. I totally relate to that. It's nerve-wracking, isn't it? Putting anything out online, you're
Mhm.
opening yourself up to judgment and criticism and things like that. So yeah, it is definitely. I can relate to that completely.
Yeah, also putting, I guess, yourself at the whims of an algorithm.
Mm,
Like, they're even now, like, I'll have massive growth spurts in my following and then complete dead phases where I'll lose followers, and
yeah,
I'm doing the same content and the same amount of stuff.
yeah.
It really is a labor of love. And to this day, like, especially on my main account, I don't get paid for my content. I'm doing it because I love it. And I think that's the case with a lot of science content creators.
Yeah.
It's not particularly lucrative
Mm,
through Instagram and TikTok. It's just because we love it and we want to share this stuff with people. And every time a student messages you and said, I look forward to your posts every week, or this inspired me to study science at university, it makes it all worthwhile.
yeah, 100%, totally agree with that. But yeah, I think someone said to me once, the first pancake, when you're making pancakes, the first one is always bad. It goes in the bin, but it gets better and better each time. And by the fifth one, it's great. And it's the same with the content creation. Like when I look back at my
100%.
first video, I'm like, oh, that was awful. But I think you just have to learn from it, and I'm still learning, and especially like you say with all the AI and all these new editing software and all of that side of things is doesn't necessarily come naturally to me. Whereas
Mhm.
I'm confident at speaking, but then the whole other side of things is yeah, it's just a huge learning curve. So with your social media platform now, then what are you trying to do? Are you trying to break down barriers? Are you trying to get young people into science? What's the purpose, I guess, behind it?
I think a big one for me is showing people that you can love science and you don't have to work in a lab. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of the science content creators out there are amazing, and they're showing what it's like working as a scientist. And I think that
Mm,
is so helpful for a large majority of people who go on to study science. But there are also a lot of people like me who see that and they think, well, that looks great, but that's not what I want to do.
mm,
So a big part of what I do is I sort of hope that young people can see my content, think, this is really cool, and she's doing this without having to work in a lab and has made a career out of this. So that's a big thing for me. And I think just showing kids that science can be exciting. It's not just for kids, I mean, it's for anyone.
yeah.
But I do feel like the school system, it's got better, but
Mm,
science education is still not as exciting as it could be. And
yeah.
I think in general, I mean, the comments people give to me when I tell them I'm a science journalist, they're like, oh, that must be really boring. I'm like, no, it's the coolest job
No.
ever. But I think there is still that sort of bias and the stereotype there.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess it's sort of you're providing people with an alternative career in STEM, really, is what you're doing, isn't it? And then also the other thing that I think you do so well is you're just breaking it down and making science so simple. You take articles that are like probably really complex and just make it so accessible to people. I think you do that really well. And it's just I guess women in science as well is a huge thing because, for me growing up, I didn't know anyone that was a scientist. And, when
Mm,
I talk a lot about scientists in the media and TV, and I think it's getting better, but I think it could still be improved. And a lot of the time on young people are seeing scientists, they're often this stereotypical white middle class male in the lab coat, and it's about breaking down those barriers as well, isn't it? And
mhm.
just sort of showing that you can still be, a young woman, you can be into fashion, you can be into this and still be a scientist. Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, this is the thing. I think a lot of the time as women in science, we're almost sort of preventing ourselves from shining out because we're told this is what a scientist looks like. And if you want to be taken seriously, you need to wear trousers and all black. And I, for a long time, did that, until I sort of felt I was in a position where I was confident in my career and thought, actually, I've got enough work behind me to be taken seriously, even if I'm wearing a pink miniskirt.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time, and especially when you're
Mm,
told you need to dress appropriately. I mean,
mm,
dress appropriately, but you don't need to be wearing a navy suit. You can be
exactly.
wearing something that expresses your personality. And I've always loved wearing science earrings for that reason, because it's
Mm,
quite a girly thing, but it also shows that I'm very nerdy and love science.
yeah.
So I think we definitely censor as women
Mm.
in a scientific STEM career.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's giving young girls, you know, sometimes I think it puts them off because if they're into wearing certain clothes or, you know, dressing a certain way or expressing themselves in a certain way, then they're almost thinking, well, science isn't for me then. I'm
Mhm.
the arts person. I guess we're here to say, no, be yourself and you can still love science.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question is, what's next for you in terms of career? Obviously you're doing your science journalism. I know what's next for you in real life. It's so exciting. I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, but in terms of career, yeah, what are you hoping to do? Just carry on doing what you're doing with science communication?
So I at the moment in my role at Live Science, I really love the fact that I'm able to kind of choose what stories we're going to write about, because it's trending news, it's everything within
Yep.
science. So I feel very lucky in that sense, in that I don't really have a ceiling on what I'm allowed to cover.
Mm,
Um, so in terms of that trajectory, and I have to say, Live Science is one of the best places to work. It's an amazing publication,
yep.
and I think I'm very lucky to have found myself there already. What I would say is, in terms of my personal content creation, I would like to go into sort of more podcast, TV content, to reach more people essentially, and to be able to share, like we said before, that you can have a career in science without having to go down the stereotypical route, and also just to sort of share these things that I find so exciting, because I think when people can tell that you're excited about something, it ignites that curiosity and passion in them as well, and it is infectious. And so I want to sort of be that curiosity virus.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, maybe we could get our own TV show after this, actually, Pandora.
That
Let's
sounds like a great idea.
yeah. Mums in science, because that's obviously next for you, isn't it? I don't know whether you're happy to
Yes,
talk about that, but you're gonna have a
absolutely.
baby pretty soon, isn't it? That's why I wanted to
Yes.
get this in quickly today before the baby arrives.
Yes, we're 38 weeks today exactly. So hopefully she doesn't decide to come halfway through this talk. Um,
Oh,
but yes, it's been. I mean, I have to say, it's totally transformed just how I look at the human body, because obviously before you're pregnant, as a biologist, you know how it works,
yeah.
sort of roughly what the body does during that phase. But it's totally different when you're actually experiencing it, and I've become obsessed with learning about everything that's going on in my
Mm,
body, and everything child development, not just the sort of, okay, what should I have, what shouldn't I have, um, but more just the sort of weird, quirky science that goes along with it. Like, I did a video recently on how babies can taste in the womb, or what we think they can. They sort of change their facial expressions when they have bitter and sweet foods. And I just find that absolutely fascinating to know that's going on inside of me right now. So I recently started a sort of mum child content specific
yeah, I
account.
saw that.
Yeah, Pandora Science Mama. I think on my main account I have a lot of young people who are not thinking of kids anytime soon, and seeing all of this pregnancy content was just irrelevant to them. And there's a whole other group of people who are very interested in that, but maybe don't care so much about some of the other weird science stuff I'll talk about. So
Mm,
it's that's been a really nice way of sharing, again, this sort of infectious excitement about the science of growing a person.
yeah.
And again, I feel very lucky that I am in working at a company who've been so good about maternity leave, making me feel really comfortable in, like, come back when you're ready and your job's still going to be there. I've not had to deal with anything difficult in terms of announcing that I'm going to have to take a break. And I know so many women do have to deal with those really difficult conversations and choices.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think same for me. I'm obviously NHS, so I was really grateful to be an NHS employee at that time as well.
Mm.
But yeah, I love it's sort of like a newfound appreciation for the body, isn't it? When you're just like,
Really,
oh my
yeah.
God, like this is what I am doing every day without even thinking about it. It's just
Mm.
absolutely crazy. But yeah, I just think it's going to be amazing. You know, from mum to mum, I did find it challenging. Don't get me wrong. Like, give
Mm.
me an Oxford entrance exam any day. I know how to prepare for that. Revise, you know, you revise, you get your grades, and that's what you do. And it's all very logical. And once you have a baby, it's a bit chaotic, and that's what I personally um struggled with and found hard because I'm very logical, organized, all of that. But
Mm.
you'll find your feet and you'll just become a new version of yourself. So I think, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
so last question that I'm going to ask everybody who comes onto the podcast is, what piece of advice would you give to any young listeners who want to follow in your footsteps?
I'd say three things that I think are really good to know as a young person who's starting out in their career. And the first one is, it is never too late to change your mind. So I actually started doing a biochemistry degree at Oxford. Didn't realize it was basically chemistry and not much
Mhm,
bio. And for me, it was the biological molecular side of things that I found most interesting. So I did first year and realized halfway through, I'm not enjoying this. And
mm,
I've got 3 more years of this. And it was hard to change course. Like, they didn't really want to make it easy. The biology team were really, really helpful about saying, oh, of
mhm.
course you're welcome here, but just the sort of bureaucracy side of it,
Yeah.
it was difficult, and you have to get a certain grade to be allowed to change course, and then you go into second year, you've missed the whole of first year, and you've got to do a whole degree in 2 years. So it was tough. I wouldn't say, oh, it's super easy to change your course,
Mm,
but I would say I'm so glad I did,
yeah.
because that was the right decision for me. And same with in my professional life, I had a long time of not knowing what I wanted to do, and sort of jumping between different kinds of science communication and ending up in journalism and knowing this is the right place for me. It took a long time. And this sort of leads on to the second piece of advice is, if you don't know what you want to do when you're straight out of university, that's normal. It's like, a lot of my friends had graduate schemes lined up, or they were going to do masters or PhDs, and it made me feel quite nervous, like, oh, I should know what I want to do, and I should be
Mm,
doing a big glitzy job in a fancy office somewhere. um, and then I managed to give myself the time to say, you've got until you're 25 to figure out what you want to do. And in the meantime, obviously still work. I did quite a lot of hospitality work around
mm,
the lockdowns. I obviously did the work at life science. I did not life science, climate science. And I did the script writing, freelancing. So I jumped around between a lot of things. I was working the whole time, but I wasn't saying this has to be the career I want.
mm,
And then by the time I was 25, I'd been working at Newsweek for a while, and I knew, wow, I found it. I found the thing that works for me.
yeah.
So I think being generous with yourself and giving yourself space to find what you want to do is so, so important, to not get to your late 20s, realize you spent the last 10 years doing something that you don't actually love, and then it's kind of too late to jump into an entry level job. Well, it's never too late, but it's harder to jump into an entry
Yeah.
level job, especially when you're starting to think about having a family and you don't want to have to go back to being an intern and all of that kind of
Mm,
thing. Um, and I think my third piece of advice would be, take every opportunity that comes to you. So for me, the climate science, that coming during lockdown, I mean, lockdown was a major setback for a lot of young people starting out in their careers. And yet this volunteering opportunity came to me and became so much bigger than I thought it ever could, and gave me so much experience and portfolio building to then be able to go into the professional world. And then sort of later on, the YouTube script writing, I applied to that kind of on a whim, and that led to so many other things. Newsweek as well I just sort of applied to it because I thought, oh, I like science writing. This seems like an interesting job, and I've ended up in that industry. And I think in general with social media as well, you get invited to various events. At this point, I'm not able to go to everything at the moment. And I think once kids are around, it becomes a lot harder. But when you're young, go to everything, talk to everyone, meet as many people as you can, because this world, it's not about who you know exactly, but it's about building a community and about networking. And I think you don't even need to meet in person. Like, we met through social media. I think the science communication world on social media is such a lovely place to be. And I've met so many amazing people. Never met in person, but I've spoken to them, and we really love each other's stuff, or the content that we're creating. And I think it's a really supportive environment. So I would say talk to as many people as you can, take every opportunity that comes to you.
Thanks so much, Pandora. I think that is so useful, and it sounds like you've just followed what you love. You've gone with what you enjoy, and then I think if you do that, you can't really go wrong, can you?
I 100% agree.
So thank you so much. I could literally talk to you all day, but in the interest of time, I will finish there. And I really think I'm so glad that you came on the podcast, and I think lots of young people will find your story inspiring and probably never even realised that science journalism was a thing. So even just that is really helpful. So thank you so much, Pandora, and good luck with the baby as well.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you.